Hello. There are countless YouTubers here on the platform making incredible things, but few can start with almost nothing and still manage to craft wildly creative, innovative miniatures and terrain. My guest today has created a unique space here on YouTube where he can explore his endless creativity, his artistry, use editing and music and anything from around the house to create not just miniatures and models and terrain, but an entire world populated with compelling creations. We talk the crafting hobby, what it's like to work on YouTube, the influence of Games Workshop, the Bangarang in the Gutterlands, and the wonderful works of the indie gaming scene. I'm Jordan, this is Jordan Sorcery, and today I'm in conversation with Bill Making Stuff. Bill, thank you for joining me. I am keen to start by talking a little bit about your origins as a crafter. How did you sort of discover that hobby?
So crafting, I mean, I was always obsessed with like GW when I was a kid, and Necromunda and things like that. But I think I only really started crafting about 5 years ago with miniatures and war games and stuff like that. But before that, I used to work on film, and I used to always like look at the art department. I want to like make guns and make models of monsters and stuff, and so I started doing like my own films, and I started like weathering stuff. It started off with weathering things. Like I'd buy a BB gun and make it look like some old rusty gun, or like a toy sword and make it look like a real sword, or all that stuff. And then I started making little monsters out of clay, and it kind of went from there really. But crafting properly was probably at the beginning of the pandemic, because I couldn't find a job and I was bored and I had nothing else to do. Like I was literally looking for jobs, and I'm just like, I can't just sit here watching films all day. I've got to like think of something to do in my time, something creative. And I just got some like das clay, started making weird little monsters. And I realized there was this stuff called polymer clay which much better, you can stick it in the oven. And I realized, well, if I just stuck this little bit of plastic in the clay, then that's a little pipe coming out of it then. And then I figured out, a lollipop stick, and then this and this, and then there's a bit of junk on the floor stuck down there. It kind of happened like that, really. And then I spent a whole day watching Craftsman on YouTube, steady crafting. I watched like his whole back catalogue in like a day. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that, I think.
Well, so that was where you decided, okay, I'm just going to take this and create a YouTube channel.
That's when I realized that there is like an audience for crafting on YouTube. And I already had a film background, so I figured, I've got the cameras and that's sitting there. I mean, I had no job at the time. I probably wouldn't have done it if I actually had a job. I was just recently made redundant from this job, so I just thought I've got to make money somehow. And let's try and make money doing something I actually enjoy for once, and then, but yeah, I watched the whole Craftsman in one day, like just nonstop. As soon as I woke up, I don't know where the family was, because I don't know how I got away with watching it all day long. But I watched every single video he made. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna do that. This guy makes a living filming him make stuff. I thought, let's give it a go. So yeah, I never expected it to be a job at all, but it is now. Anyway.
Well, I mean, I can see obviously on those shelves next to you, there's a load of classic GW stuff. That feels like that must have been part of your early interactions with modeling and sort of wargaming. Was that an influence as well?
This is all the stuff I wanted when I was a kid. And then as soon as I started making one on YouTube, I started getting quite a bit of it. But like White Dwarfs, I could afford the White Dwarfs when I was a kid. I used to get the White Dwarf magazine and stuff. I had a few like Necromunda, that's the original one, but you can tell because it's held together with sellotape. But yeah, I mean, most of this I got more recently, which is a lot more expensive. But I forgot what the question is now.
I suppose it was just like what was your relationship with like the hobby or hobbying wargaming crafting and modeling. What was your relationship with those when you were younger? So before you sort of started getting into it in more recent years?
I mean, when I was a kid, I would draw all the time, illustrate stuff, and I thought that was the only thing you could do at home, that, you could create something by illustrating. I never even considered like making things, but I was obsessed with, I think the first ever thing that got me into it, like I got this, this, and I got this one. I'm like, I found these in like a little cheap shop. I'm like, they're just really cool pictures. Like, I don't, are they painted? Like, are they illustrated? I couldn't really figure it out. And I took it to a friend, and he's like, "Oh no, that's Games Workshop. That's they're miniatures. They're like actual little things that you get and you paint." That blew my mind. I'm like, "What the fuck?" They sorry, shouldn't be swearing. I couldn't believe that they were little. You can actually buy those little things and you can paint them, and they're all really cool. And I was just like, yeah, I think that was the point where I got into it. Like, and then through school, during RE lessons, we'd read the Necromunda book, and my RE teacher would come along and tell me, do you know what necro means? And he'd tell us all this stuff. But I couldn't buy any Games Workshop. I couldn't afford any of it. I mean, it was all just watching my friends have it, and they sometimes get me to paint some of their stuff, but I always paint them the wrong colors, for them. I used to make terrain, actually. That's one thing I did do, toilet tubes. And I remember I spent like 2 weeks making it. It was literally 2 toilet tubes and a walkway, just like that big. Right. I spent ages on it. And I thought it was like amazing. And I'll do that in about 30 minutes now. But I spent 2 weeks. I put it in my bag to take to my friend's house to show him. And it just broke in the bag, and I was devastated. I remember that. But yeah, I mean, my relationship to it, I guess. I think it was the world building and stuff. Like, as a kid, if you see like one of these like codex or something, and you just look at the art, I just looked at the artwork, like for forever. I would just, flick through that. It was just like, there's nothing like it really, was there, when you was a kid? Nothing as complex and as dark and, disturbing, which was good. But, yeah, and then I stopped. I did it a lot when I was a kid, and then I stopped through my whole adult life. I completely forgot about it. I think a lot of people completely forget about it, and then they come back to it when they have kids. Then I lost my job, and then I'm like, what can I do? I start crafting, and I'm like, I'm crafting things, but what am I crafting them for? They're fun to do at the time, but it's not really. There's this weird part of me that if I do anything, it has to be for something. Like if I'm drawing something, it has to be for a game book, or it has to add to something. I can't just do something and just, oh, there we go, and throw that away. That's a nice picture. I'll leave that over there. Or so I kind of thought, I'm crafting all these things. Like, I might as well just craft them for something. And then I remembered Games Workshop, and then I found out about all these other games. All these. I still couldn't afford Games Workshop even then when I had a job. So I found all these other games like Stargrave and things like that, and then I found out about indie games, and I thought, yeah, sounds like a bit of me. That does. So you hear notifications from my kid's iPad over there. So yeah, I think I always wanted to do it. It felt like I always wanted to be like creative, and when I used to make films, I could never make like a sci-fi or like something with monsters in it because it was too much money. I had to make like an indie comedy or something, or like or a drama, a kitchen sink drama, something that us British people are really good at making. But I really wanted to make like big, wide scope kind of fantasy or sci-fi, Lord of the Rings kind of thing. And I'm like, well, I can do it here with these little miniatures, and I can make my own game, and I can tell my own little stories and have it all connected and stuff. But yeah, and I completely forgot about it until I was like jobless and 40 and miserable. And, had kids, had a kid at the time that was driving me mad, and like, yeah, I'll just do that. I'll just hide and do this for a bit. And then obviously YouTube came about, like, and then I thought, well, I can try and stick it on YouTube, see if it does anything, and it kind of did, which is, I think I was lucky. It was the pandemic when I did it, but I don't know.
Well, you say that, but then I think one of the things that's always been true about your YouTube channel and your sort of presence online, I think, is that there's a very considered, characterful, distinct look and feel to it, even from your first video. The thumbnail and the editing and the sort of the way you've put it together is very you, it seems. I mean,
Yeah.
were they like decisions that you spent a lot of time thinking about before you even made that first video, or did they come about naturally?
I mean, obviously, it kind of evolved over time, like the style, like, but if I'm going to film something, I've always got to think about like the framing of it, or like, well, why use a white light? It doesn't really. We're not showing a human face. We can just light this however we like. We can chuck colors in and make it interesting, And I learned at university. The only thing I learned at film university is that sound's more like just as important as the video. So I thought, let's chuck some sound effects in there. I'm like, oh, well, if I put a sound effect in there, then I need a sound effect for this one. And then eventually it was a compulsion. Every single little action had to have an accompanying sound effect. And then it kind of evolved from there. But I'm always of the mindset like, well, how can I make this more interesting? Like even me talking to camera, like I could just be pleasant and I'm not always pleasant, but like I could just be like, a typical pleasant YouTuber, or I can play a character a little bit because that lets me get away with a little bit more. I can be just really miserable and horrible to a toilet tube cat just because I find it funny, and then I can add a narrative that sort of goes through. I could stuff like that. I mean, there were lots of shows I used to watch when I was younger that kind of were like that, like vids and bits, things like that. Like vids, they those guys weren't like that in real life. I bet they weren't doing all those little crazy things all the time, and they just kind of, every piece of the camera was a thought out kind of a bit, basically a comedy bit. And I thought, it just gave me scope to work with. I mean, I just have to think like, if I'm going to do something, let's think of a creative way of doing it. Like instead of just shooting it for the sake of shooting it, like I'd think of an interesting way of shooting it, or an interesting way of editing it. It also came out of boredom. Editing a craft video is quite boring. I'm like, how can I make it more interesting? Like, I can crash zoom into this thing, or I can put my hand in front of the camera, do a wipe cut, and show something else, or a match cut. And I just kept going for all these edits that you learn at film school, or you learn from watching films, and you never really get to use because they're kind of tacky. But I could be as tacky as I want on a crafting channel. Doesn't matter. I went to film university, and they taught us all this stuff, but you can never use it for a film. Your film had to be kind of dire and it had to be like a drama or serious, and then I went on to corporate filmmaking, and that was even worse. Like I used to make strange edits for the client, like an operatic, like this was for a drill bit company, like drills going into metal and sparks going everywhere, like to classical music, and it looked quite impressive. And it's like, no, get rid of that. I spent like a whole day doing that. I'm like, I got my own channel now. I can just do all that weird, crazy stuff I couldn't do before, and see what sticks. It's also a lot of that, like see what sticks, yeah, I mean, I just doing what I want to do, like just going crazy with it, just making something that I would find entertaining,
I mean, you do animations and things like that built into your videos as well, right? I mean, I'm guessing a lot of that takes quite a lot of time and care and attention to put together.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I make the music as well. The music takes a long time, and yeah, I do make it so much harder for myself. I don't know why. Like the animation, sometimes it's quite hard to like. I don't know what the animation I can kind of do on my phone. If I'm on like a long journey, I'm like, well, there's a couple of little bits in my video coming up that I need like an explosion or something. So I'll just draw a little explosion on my phone, and I get a bit carried away. I get a bit obsessive, and I'll start, I can animate a title, and just animate, some bots walking around or dotted arrows and things like that. I don't know. The answer is I want to put a lot of effort in. I don't know. I just want, I kind of realized early on, like if I put more effort in, it tends to return, you might not think it will, but you do get like some more hardcore fans that just like, they come to expect it. And some of the people that realize how much effort goes into a video, they want to support you, because they know, not everyone knows how much goes into a video. A lot of people don't know, but I mean, it's 2 weeks solid for every video for me, like work all day in the evenings if the kids give me a chance, and like yeah, 2 weeks solid of doing it, and it's stressful, but it's still the best job I've ever had in my life. I mean, I've had some all right jobs, but I've had some really bad ones. But I mean, also with YouTube, like if you work, I used to work for a corporate film production company, and I would make a really good little documentary for them, and I might get one person say, "Oh, that was nice, Bill," and then but if you make a video on YouTube, you get 500 people telling you, "Yeah, I really like this bit, and I really like this bit." It's like walking around an office of 500 people and everyone just giving you a high five. You know what I mean? Never happened. It wouldn't happen in real life. So and obviously you get constant feedback, critical feedback from people, don't you? And I never take it on board or adjust. I'm just like, no, you're wrong. But
well, I was curious about your. I mean, I suppose does that put more effort in philosophy? I'm guessing that flows through into the actual kit bashes and the builds that you do as well, right? Because there's a lot of intricacy, and there's a lot of examples I think in your work where you'll say you're never going to see this, so I'm gonna do stuff so that I know it's there, even though no one will ever see it. So is that like the philosophy of your builds?
Like, I feel like it's like a mental condition. I think like I'm just obsessive. Like if I like sometimes I paint the underneath of bases that you're never going to see. Just because for me that bugs me. Like it's the only way I can explain. It's like an obsession. I'm just I will lie in bed awake if I haven't put something on a shelf in the back of like a little shop that you're not going to see. I don't know. I can't really explain it. I do feel like it's. I was a little bit more free with it, Like sometimes I'm a bit like that. Like at the end of the build, I'm like, well, it's good enough. It's good enough for the video. I can't do any more. But that's just me trying to convince myself that, like, for me, it's still. I'll have sleepless nights if the build isn't like up to my standards or whatever. I mean, and the paint jobs are like that as well. Like. I hate painting. Well, I used to hate painting. I don't hate painting so much anymore. But I look at some of my old things. It's the paint. I rush the paint jobs. That's right at the very end of the build. I like the build, but I just rush the paint jobs, and I kind of regretted it on some of the things. I mean, I feel like going through my catalog and rebuilding everything again. But you keep asking me questions and I keep forgetting what they are. I keep going off on a tangent.
All right, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I suppose one question I did have was just around. I mean, it feels like there's a conscious choice in your work not to lean too far towards things like Games Workshop or 40K. I mean, you've done some videos, you've done 40K related terrain videos, or I'm going to build some miniatures, or I'm going to do something for Gutterlands, or games like that. But you don't tend to go for that almost, I don't want to say low hanging fruit, but more, it's perhaps
low hanging fruit is the word.
So is that a choice then? That's a decision, I guess?
It is. It's like I was a nightmare employee. Like I wasn't that bad, but like I got a problem with authority. Like if there's a manager telling me what to do, like I would do the opposite. Not always, but I think I know what's best, which is probably mostly wrong. But so Games Work, when I would put Games Workshop in the title, like a few of my earlier videos, they'd be like make this for Stargrave and Planet 28 and Games Workshop at the end, just for the algorithm or whatever. But I mean, to be honest, any skills I teach, like anything I figure out, you can apply to Games Workshop, if you want. So that was kind of my thought on it. Like it's all tabletop wargaming. I'll make a building, you can apply that to Games Workshop if you want. I just sticking it in the title just kind of, I don't know. It sticks in my throat. I don't want to. It's the contrarian in me. I think I just don't want to do it. Like you said, low hanging fruit. It feels like to me, and it just doesn't sit well with me. Like, because I do love old Games Workshop. It got me into it. But I know there's lots of. I watch a lot of YouTube, and there's lots of. I watch all the. Name a craft where I probably watch them. It's like market research for me, and I'm kind of a bit hooked on it anyway. But I watch a lot of videos that have nothing to do with Games Workshop, and then they're like, "Oh, make some trees for Games Workshop," or make some Games Workshop. And I'm like, there's not Games Workshop trees; they're just trees, and that kind of bothers me. Like that, putting a little GW logo on the thumbnail and things like that, and a big face, and GW trees, and like there's just fucking trees. They're not like that bothers me. Like it really does. Like it feels a bit like sending out. I mean, unless like your channel, you're obviously really into GW, so that's your thing. For me, I can't really lie or pretend to be that into it anymore. Like I can't be into all the female custodian stuff. I don't give a shit. Like I'm not interested in. I haven't been interested in GW since 2000. But I can't. I think that's the problem. I can't lie, and I can't pretend the video's about something that it isn't. And I can't make it's like an Instagram filter of a thumbnail. Like I don't put any filters on it. It's just that's the build. There's going to be colors in there, and there's a colored background. Probably some inappropriate lighting, and the big title over the top. It's a weird thing. I just don't really want to lie about it. But not that it's that bad to lie that these trees are GW trees or whatever. It's not a bad thing, but it just doesn't sit well with me. I just like to be really honest. If it just gets me in trouble, I don't like even in real life, the school pickup gets me in trouble being too honest with everyone. I don't know where that comes from. I need to speak to my therapist, I think, find out where that comes from. But I guess that's what it is. Yeah, like I just like to be really genuine. Like, and I think, yeah, like I spoke to you before, like being genuine kind of is like a bulletproof shield, isn't it? Like you can't really get to me because I tell you all my flaws all the time, and I show my flaws. If I'm rubbish at painting, I'd say I'm rubbish at painting. Like you can't comment and say, "Oh, that paint is a bit crap." I'm like, yeah, I told you. And like, what are you telling me for? I already told you that. So that, I mean, I guess that's kind of it. It's like a bulletproof shield. I'm just going to be honest about it. But the earlier videos, like I would stick GW in the title, and I might mention it once or twice because I thought that's what the algorithm wanted, And it's true. The things I make, you can apply to Games Workshop and any of the 50 million games that are out there, So,
well, I mean, so how do you find working on YouTube, and there is an algorithm, and there are. You talked before about the metrics and sort of all of the numbers that come at you. Just as a job, how do you navigate sort of, okay, am I going to follow trends? Am I going to do certain things specifically because it will please the algorithm or get more views? Or do you just try and do something else?
I've never ever looked at a trend on YouTube. I've never followed a trend ever. Like I wouldn't even know how to do it. Do you do it? I don't know how to do it. I don't follow trends in real life either. Like the music I listen to is like, I don't know, ancient. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what's out at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I would only watch a film if I know it's good. I won't listen to the hype and go watch a film. I'll wait until it filters through hundreds of people to get to me. But I've never followed trends on YouTube. I always thought like I'll make my own audience, and like I'll make something. The people that like it will stay, and the people that don't will just go. Like, so I'll make a nice core audience, and I'll just make it for them and for me. I hope that it will find its own audience. I don't try and get a new audience. The thing is with trends on YouTube, I've got friends who've made videos that did like 500,000 views, and they've got like a couple of thousand subscribers just because that video trended. But no one ever comes back, like unless they're committed to your channel, they're not going to come back and watch it, like, because that thing, obviously they can relate to that one video, but they're not interested in you. I mean, and the character I play, I mean, if people buy into that, as long as I'm in the video, like that's it, they're going to come back and watch it. So, I mean, that was my thing. I never follow trends. I have no idea how to title my videos or what is popular at the moment. I don't know what's popular. Female custodians. I keep saying that because that's the only thing I know.
Well, I can definitely put that in the description below. That Bill talks about female custodians, and we'll see.
There we go. Yeah, he mentioned it at least twice.
I mean, one thing that you've done over time, and I think we tend to see with a lot of creators on YouTube, is moving more towards almost telling their own stories and sort of creating their own worlds a little bit. Could you talk about like your journey towards like building your own world?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think part of a mental illness I must have, because it's the whole thing. I said earlier about like illustrating something for nothing or writing a story for nothing, a throwaway one shot story. For me, that's like feels like a waste of time. I'd rather take that illustration and then draw it, add something, a story to it, and then add another story to that, so they all kind of reinforce each other. It creates a world. It adds weight to everything. I've said this a lot in my videos. I think like I want everything I make to be in the same world, so everything could have interacted with everything else. Like they could bump into each other walking down a path, or I make a monster, I make a character. This character might have killed one of those monsters once. You know what I mean? Like it's all connected, and when you do that, it adds weight to everything. It adds a backstory to everything. I think even with films, like I was saying, I wanted to make sci-fi films and fantasy films. I think I just wanted to world build. I just like, and then I saw an opportunity. A lot of my viewers, I think, come back because the world building. They want to see the world grow. And a lot of them contribute to it. On Discord. They add little bits. They make their own little characters that exist in my world, and creatures and robots and stuff. And I like all that. It makes a rich world, and it's kind of like it's what I used to like about Games Workshop. Like all the world building stuff. Now it just feels like they want to sell miniatures. Sorry, you just lost some of your audience there. But that's what it feels like now. Like but for me, I just want to make a nice, big, rich world, like a playground. That, I don't sit there for hours and then just in my head in this imaginary world. I don't do that, honestly. But yeah, and then I thought, if I make a world up, then that gives me all sorts of opportunities. I can make games in this world. I can make a comic book in this world. I can, I just needed the right world to begin with. Now, I don't know how much you know about the Gutterlands or the world.
Tell us about the Gutterlands. Yeah, tell us about the world.
It's a terrible name. I'm terrible at naming things, but it took a while to name that. So basically, everything I built in my videos exists in this one imaginary world. In the same way in Games Workshop, everything exists in that universe, right? The 41st millennium, whatever it is. But it's all on one planet called Tapu, but they call it the Gutterlands because the whole universe, it's like if Games Workshop, the 41st millennium, there's only war, right? Is that the saying? Mm-hmm. Well, this is the 42nd millennium when there's only peace. The war's over. The whole universe is peaceful. It's really boring. There's nothing going on. There's nowhere for explorers or adventurers to go. Apart from this one planet that is basically a dump site for all of the weapons they used during the war and all of the weird forbidden tech that it's forbidden now. Let's just dump it over there, right on the outskirts of the galaxy, and we just leave it there and we just kind of quarantine that planet. That's kind of what they did. And they did it in a big ceremonial kind of like a show. All these ships would just dump all this stuff, salute, and then go off to their planets. That was like thousands of years ago. But recently people have started going to that planet for fun, for adventure. Like it's the one planet in the whole system that you can actually break the law, or you can shoot a gun, or kill monsters. So that was the idea. Like it's basically a playground for people that want to explore and have fun and kill people. I don't want to kill people, but you know what I mean? Like in this world, maybe some of them want to kill people or hunt monsters or, eat meat. That's one of the things. They get to eat meat on that planet. I imagine the rest of the universe is like that scene in The Hobbit when they're all eating those lettuce leaves, in the dwarves. Right. It's kind of the rest of the universe is kind of like that, apart from the Gutterlands. So that was the story. And when they dumped everything on this planet, obviously all sorts of weird stuff happened to the planet. Like weird things evolved because all these biological weapons and all this forbidden, really advanced tech would just take a life of its own. And there's all these different regions and different weird different regions, different countries, and just all sorts of weird stuff going on everywhere. Like I like old sci-fi novels that kind of like Gene Wolfe, Gene Wolfe, Book of the New Sun. Like that world is just like layers upon layers of like tech, and all the technology is considered like magic because it's so old, and it's just you never know what's going to happen in that book. It's just so bizarre. I kind of wanted a world like that, with rusters in it. Everyone seems to think it's like a world, like the whole world is a junkyard. It's not. There's lots of weird jungles, and I've made it so it's very open, and you can basically stick anything in this world, and it would work. Again, I've forgotten the question, but like that's basically that's the world. and yeah, I can set anything in there, and it's just it's fun. Everything I build ends up in that world. I actually have a website called thegutterlands.com where you can read up about everything I've built and how it interacts with each other. It's like a Wikipedia.
Right.
Like, need to think of a better name for it, but like a Gutterpedia or something. But and then every video I do kind of revolves around that, and I think that the core viewers want to see what happens next in that world.
Is there like an ongoing story then, or is it just like a sandbox for it?
It's an ongoing it's the sandbox at the moment, but there's lots of little stories going on all over the place. But like, it's an ongoing sandbox. Like, the world is just being built one robot at a time. One monster at a time, or like factions of people, and then I made Bangarang in the Gutterlands, which was like my first game I made with Ben of Apocrypha Now, which we wanted to keep it small. Basically just like a gladiator arena with robots fighting each other in one of the main towns in the Gutterlands. So, I mean, but it adds a lot of world building to it. And I think, I'm going to expand. I want to do bigger games with like, more factions. I mean, I made up a new faction the other day, and that's going to be in my next video, depending on when this comes out. But yeah, to me, it feels like a waste of time if it's not adding to something, like it has to add to something. It's an obsession, really. Like, it's obviously things can be just things because they're interesting or fun. But for me, it has to all, maybe I blame like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or something, like, I don't know.
Can you imagine a Gutterlands cinematic universe in the future?
A lot of people were like saying, this would be a film eventually. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it's basically Mad Max. You know what I mean? The world is Mad Max mixed with Fallout, and a boy and his dog, and just it's a post-apocalyptic world, really. Like, but I don't know. Maybe a few comics. See if we get any stories. I've got a lot of stories, lots of weird stories, and I always like a bit of a weird irony or a bit of a weird sense of humor to it all. There always has to be a little tongue-in-cheek joke to every little bit of lore I give. I think that's like the Red Dwarf influence and things like that, Hitchhiker's Guide and stuff like that. But yeah.
I mean, you recently did a sort of bit of a project with a load of other channels, the Big Bot Bash, where you brought other people in to create their own monsters, their own creatures that could sit within the Gutterlands, right? And you'd sort of built tables for how that works. I mean, that kind of idea is quite fun of all this sort of mass collaboration. It's kind of a collaborative exercise to populate the world of the Gutterlands, I suppose. I mean, what was the sort of thinking and the logistics even of putting something like that together?
I mean, I think the thinking of it was to populate their subscriber count with more subscribers. When I started watching all these crafting channels, there was lots of like little collaborations, and I kind of missed that. Like, people don't really do big collaborations anymore, not really. And I'm like, there's lots of people I watch that have barely any subscribers, and they're really good. And I'm like, this is just a way of me sharing them to my audience, and then sharing me to their audience. It's cross-pollination. I do a lot of cross-pollination. I'm doing it right now, actually. I'm pollinating all over your channel. When I started, like, I think my channel took a big kind of like, it rose a lot in subscribers when I did like the pod racer thing. I don't know if you ever saw that with Studson right. Studio, Boyle Hobby Time, and Eric's Hobby Workshop, and that I became friends with them, and they invited me to it. And it took got a lot of subscribers from it. And I'm like, well, that's really helpful for everyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's good for everyone. And I thought, like, well, let's just find some people I really like that have barely any subscribers, and people that do have subscribers, because you want their subscribers to trickle down to them. And I mean, that's why I did it. I just kind of miss collaborations. It's the best way to find other channels, without having to look for them through the YouTube search engine or whatever it is. I mean, they all made their. I mean, I set some rules, like you had to scratch build it or you had to kit bash it or whatever, and they all made their robots. I don't know if they've all made the Gutterlands. I don't know. I don't know if they all. They exist in some corner of the world, but that wasn't really kind of expressed on them that it has to exist in there. But it's more like my style of building things. Like, it was entertaining for me. I wanted to see people like, MS Paint's Dave. I wanted to see him like kit bash or scratch build something, using junk. I want to see how easy it is for people or how hard it is, just for my entertainment. But also, it's one of the, it had really good views. Or everyone's video had really good views. Everyone got a lot of subscribers. It was that really. I want to share it out, a bit. Sort of the same way people sort of send their subscribers to me. It's just share it out. We need more collaborations, I think.
There was something interesting in it as well, in that because you created the sort of restrictions, right? So because of the nature of the challenge, and you built those tables around, well, what's the body like, or what's the sort of style, or the number of legs, or whatever it might be about the bots that people were building. That then creates a sort of restriction that breeds creativity, I suppose. I mean, is that something that you do for yourself in any way? Do you go,
definitely.
okay, I have to build with this material, or I have to build something that does this or that?
Yeah, I mean, my whole channel is about like, you have no money, right? So how do you make this? Like, you may have money, but the challenge is that I'm not going to spend any money on it. Or if I do, I'll spend £1 in the pound shop and get some old toy and make something with that. I wanted it to be accessible. There's lots of kids not going to spend their pocket money. A kid can't buy anything at Games Workshop anymore for their pocket money, can they? So a lot of dads and kids and mums and kids watch my stuff. I thought, how can I make it accessible for everyone? And there's plastic crap everywhere. There's junk everywhere, and we could just, I do like to limit myself. I think and using things for unexpected in unexpected ways, like toothpicks or let me think, spray bowls. I used to use a lot of spray bowls back in the day. I haven't used them a lot recently because people stopped giving them to me. But people just send me coffee cups now to my PO box. I'm like, I can get a coffee cup. I don't need that. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing was the same mentality I had when I lost my job and I started the channel. Like, I wanted to make something from nothing, and I thought it's just more impressive. Like this thing that looks like a miniature. It looks like a big monster, was made out of spray bottle parts, or was made out of just bits of plastic crap I found on the floor. And I wanted the challenge. I wanted to put that challenge on everyone in the Big Bot Bash, just to see how well they did. And they all did really well. So obviously, I'm not very particularly talented at it. I don't begrudgingly spend money. I like buying money. I like spending money on like the smaller companies now, like Stargrave, and that's not that small, but there's lots of small little indie games. I don't mind chucking them some money. I just don't want to go into a Games Workshop and buy a Games Workshop anymore. But it's the challenge. I think it makes you more creative, limiting yourself. It's the same as like using a limited color palette, in an oil painting or something. You figure out ways of doing it, and then you get better at it. The more you limit yourself, the better you get at it. And I mean, my most recent video, I'm like, how do I make tiny little coral reef for like a 28mm scale, figure? And I mean, I figured it out, but that's kind of, I think that's what people want to see. Like, if I could figure this out, this is how you do it. You could do it as well. It didn't really take much. A bit of super glue, some baking powder, and brush the hairs from a paintbrush. You know what I mean? Like things like that, or coconut fiber, and they look pretty convincing. I like to experiment a lot on my channel with like weird techniques. I don't even buying flock. I'm like, I like to make my own flock, or I make anything that like you can buy easily. There's no challenge in it. I think I just like to challenge myself and make it accessible for everyone, because I'm such a nice guy.
I mean, I am imagining though that your like studio, your crafting workshop, you must have a lot of drawers full of like random stuff, right?
Oh, I haven't got a lot of drawers, but I got a lot of random stuff. I've got just Tupperware boxes of so much crap. I don't know where anything is anymore, to be honest. The project depends. The project I'm going to do for the video depends on what I found. Like in my workshop. Like I've got like little tubs full of shells, tubs full of Jenga blocks. Like just the most random things everywhere. I don't know where they are. They're all in there somewhere. But everything I get, at the time, I'm like, I could use that for a power box or a lamppost, and then I forget what I got it for in the first place, and then I'm like, why have I got this? Like, there's lots of stuff in there. I'm a bit of a hoarder with that stuff, but I mean, once I'll, you know, maybe one day I'll get an actual workshop I can stand in and I can actually label them on shelves and stuff, but not yet.
You mentioned a few indie games and that sort of thing, and obviously you've made your own now with Bangarang. But do you spend a lot more time these days, like looking at buying, playing, collecting indie games?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy to. Sorry, like I'm quite happy to support indie game companies. Like I got this guy was a patron of mine. Have you heard of Relic Blade?
I've not, no.
No, it's quite a cool little indie game. It comes with like metal miniatures and everything. Like it's
Right.
so I ordered that. It cost a fortune from America, but I thought, yeah, he's a patron of mine. I buy his game, and it's like I went to Salute a little while ago, and there's like Nick Evans who does like Planet 28. Have you ever heard of that?
Right.
Right, so he prints his own miniatures. He molds and casts them himself. I buy all his miniatures. They all just sit in a box somewhere. I never do anything with them, but I just want to support them. A game called Cauldron I picked up recently. I mean, there's like a row of indie game books just up here, like that I'm never ever going to play ever. But I just like the books. I like looking through them. I like the artwork and stuff, and I want to support them even if I'm not going to play them. But what was the what was the question again?
I mean, it was really just about, yeah. I think I mean, what do you think of like the indie, like the world of indie games these days? Is it
Oh, yeah.
from your perspective? Are you seeing it grow or change in any way?
Yeah, I mean, everyone and their mum has an indie game now. Like, there's loads of indie games. I mean, they don't all differentiate from each other really. A lot of them are very similar, but it's just like, I mean, there's a lot of this like kind of art movement with indie games now. Like, and I've always had the problem, not with art. Obviously, art's art. I can't really define what art is or whatever. Like I can draw like pretty well and I can make things, but I wouldn't ever consider it art. Like, but a lot of these games, there's like these. I've been to conventions and there's lots of these like cool looking young artist types that have made these games, and everything they build is art. Anything they kitbash is art, and I'm like, I don't know, using the word a bit loosely. Like they are really cool. Like they look really good. I mean, it depends how you define art, right? I make something. And I know, like, if I draw on a picture of something, I'm like, I want to create that shape, so I make that shape, and I want to create this shape, so I make that shape. Basically, that's what I'm doing, right? And then I'm thinking, like, well, it would be really cool if you had a crab hand, so I'll draw a crab hand, and then I finish the picture. And I'm like, this doesn't feel like art to me, but to someone else that may feel like art. I don't know. I've got a real problem with that. But there's lots of like games, like the books themselves are like art now, like self-proclaimed art. But they are, to me, I just see it as aesthetically pleasing things. But yeah, I don't know what I was talking about now. I'm talking about like I was going off on a tangent about the whole art in miniature indie game movement. Yeah, there's a lot of that in Adepticon in Chicago, like just very cool people walking around with their little denim jackets with badges everywhere, and like just everything was art. I'm like, just lay off the art a little bit. Like it's fun, like it's really cool what you've made, like aesthetically pleasing, and it's really laid out well. Let's just you don't be an artist for art's sake. You know what I mean? You don't have to look like an artist to be an artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
you don't
this
have
is
to
interesting
call
to
everything up.
say this though, Bill, because I think you're selling yourself short a little bit. Because I would describe a lot of your work as, there's definitely an artistic, creative style there, and I think your videos could be described as a piece of art. I would say that they're a piece of art because of those decisions you've made and how you've put it together. It's more than just being aesthetically pleasing. It's a short film. It's an art film in a way, so I think maybe you can lay claim to that title as well, I would say.
Completely agree. I was just fishing for you to say that. No, I don't. I just look, for me, it's like a calculated choice. Like that looks nicer than that does. That would be cooler than that would be. Like, but maybe like I've got a weird definition of art. Like I've never been able to define it. My wife's an art teacher, so she's always telling me about pieces of art, and I'm like, it's just a nice picture, isn't it? Like there's some nice colors in there. I don't know, but yeah, that was my rant about the whole indie art movement thing. which good for them. But let's just lay off the art, shall we, a little bit? Let's just make cool things. uh, Again, what was the question?
Well, why don't we just explore then? Where do you think the channel? Where is Bill Making Stuff going to go next? What is your intentions to sort of grow and change and evolve the channel? Is there a movie in the future? Those comic books you mentioned. Are you going to do more art on the channel?
There's gonna be no art on my channel. I'm quite happy just world building. I just want to build more of the world. I do want to tell some. I've got some weird stories that involve the world. That I do want to tell somehow. I'm not sure how I'm gonna. Like maybe a short story written down or a comic. I've drawn a few comics in the past and they take forever, so I'm kind of dreading it. I don't really, unless I can get an artist to help me, maybe. But I mean, I'm working on another game. I need a skirmish game set in the world. It's just like I said about like everyone's rules are quite similar. I just need to try and think of a weird like play system, like a weird, I don't want to just roll 15 million dice for every attack. You know what I mean? I'm kind of working on like unique rule set at the moment. That's the hardest part. And I'm already doing the artwork for it. So, I mean, there's going to be a game soon, another game. And yeah, and then Amazon got in touch and they want to make a Gutterlands series. No, I don't know. Like, see where it goes. I've had computer game companies come up and ask to use the IP. I'm like a bit hesitant, but I think they were like mobile game companies. But maybe I'll wait for Bethesda or someone to come up. But yeah, I'm just going to keep world building. I'm not bored of making the videos. Like it's been like quite a few years now, and it's still the best job I've ever had. Like I can work when I want. I mean, I work all the time, but technically I can work when I want. And my patrons support me. YouTube doesn't really support people anymore. It's I'm going to go off on a tangent again, but I was thinking about how it is scary being a full-time YouTuber like that. That is my job. The only income I get is from YouTube. But it's basically the patrons that keep me going, right? So that that's the only kind of stable income I get every month. Like my YouTube ad revenue can just be up and down constantly. Like you can't predict it at all. Like it's especially lately. I don't know what's going on, but like yeah, it's quite scary being a YouTuber, to be honest. Like I mean, me and my wife want to buy a house. And I don't know what to tell the mortgage advisor. Like, how much money do I make a year? I don't know. Like, it changes all the time. Like, I don't know who would lend me the money to get a house. But yeah, I mean, I just want to carry on doing what I'm doing. I think just, I mean, it will evolve. What if I ever do get a new house? I'll get a new workshop. I'll be able to walk around and maybe make more visually pleasing videos. But but maybe I'll lose the visual aesthetic of the little tiny cupboard. Maybe I'd have to just recreate the cupboard using like MDF in the corner of an actual workshop or something. But yeah, I feel obliged to my patrons to just keep going, to be honest, so stay with me, patrons. Don't leave. I'm going to stick around if you will.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean is there, so besides the Bangarang and stuff like that, is there anything else that you'd want to let people know about that you've released or that's out there that people can go and check out and that really tells them about Bill?
Just subscribe and watch the channel, I guess. I mean, like I said earlier, I made the gutterlands.com just because I had loads of people that like the lore, and I'm like, I need to get all this together on something. It's basically a Wikipedia of anything I've made, so you can go there, see pictures, and there's links to the videos of me making every single piece. I always thought it was a good idea at the time. I don't know how many views that's got me, but it's quite a lot of work. But it's quite expansive now. Like, and I look at it and I'm quite proud of it. Like it's quite a lot of like I said, like everything I make is adding to something. So it feels like I can just keep doing this and just keep adding until might have something as in depth as the Star Wars universe, which no, it's not that in depth, is it?
Fantastic. Well, Bill, thank you so much for chatting to me. It's been a real pleasure.
You're welcome, Mr. Sorcery. Thanks.
Massive thanks to Bill for joining me to shoot the breeze and chat about his crafting, his hobby, his channel, and the Gutterlands, and all of the awesome work he's doing there. It was a real pleasure. If you would like to find out more about the Gutterlands, I've included a link in the description below, as well as a link to Bill's awesome channel that's absolutely worth giving a watch. You can also find down below a link to my Patreon, and if you want to support the work I do here on Jordan Sorcery, then please consider taking a look. It would be an enormous help. It's also a massive help if you can like and share and subscribe to my channel. That is a really, really important thing, so thank you if you're able to do that. You can now find most of my interviews available as a podcast as well. So search for In Conversation with Jordan Sorcery wherever you get your pods, and you'll probably find them. Thank you once again to Bill. Thank you for listening and watching. I'm Jordan, and this is Jordan Sorcery.